Hello, fifth graders. It is time, finally, for all four operations to be rolled into one. So you are going to need your workbook page packet and a pencil, and you're going to want to open up your workbook page packet to page 121. It'll look like this at the top. Unit 3, Lesson 13, choose the operation. This is what you should see. So again, we're on page 121. And I expect you to complete all these problems right along with me and be thinking about them as we go. So here we go. It says, decide what operation to use, then solve. When possible, express your answer as a whole or mixed number. So with this, when it says decide what operation to use, it could be any of the four: addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And we're just gonna do this one page today. All right, so Hala can ride her bike 7.5 miles in an hour. How far will she ride in 3 hours? So that's the first part of this, okay? So if she can ride 7.5 in 1 hour and I want to know how many in 3 hours, wouldn't it mean I'd have 7.5 3 times? So we would start off by doing 7.5 times 3. This would be multiplication. And I would change this to 2 times 7 is 14 plus 1 is 15 halves times 3 over 1. And we end up with 15 times 3 because we can't cross simplify. So 15 and another 15 make 30 and another 15 make 45 halves. And now I have to figure out, okay, how many 2's go into 45? Well, I know that 2 times 20 is 40, right? And if I'm at 40, I know that 2 times 2 is 4. So right now, it took me 22 2's to get to 44. So I'm gonna go ahead and write 22 for my whole number. And if I'm at 44, that means I'm 1 away from 45. So 22 and the 1 away is my numerator and my denominator stays the same. So 22.5 miles. And if it's 7.5 miles in 1 hour and I wanna know for 3 what it is, so I mean 7, 14, 21, and then a little bit more than that. Yeah, 22.5 makes sense. Right, the next part of this says, how far would she ride in 1/3 of an hour? So if to find the total distance, when it was 3 hours, we did 7.5 times 3. If I want to find my total distance after 1/3 of an hour, I'm going to use that same operation. I'm going to multiply. And this is 1/3 of an hour. So we would take 7.5 times 1/3 this time. And we've already changed the 7.5, it's 15 halves. And this time we're multiplying by 1/3, which is a little bit nicer, isn't it? Did you notice the 3 and 15 diagonal from one another? That's nice. 3 goes into both of those. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 15 5 times. So we end up with 5 times 1 is 5, and 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. There's 1 left over out of 2, so 2.5 miles. Now, would that make sense if she can go 7.5 miles in 1 hour, that if it's 1/3 of an hour, it's less than 7.5? It does make sense because 1/3 means it's not even the whole hour. It's just 1/3 of an hour, so less than 1. All right, so we got 1 down, 7 more to go. Aaron's pet rabbit eats 1/12 of a pound of food every day. If Aaron buys rabbit food in 5-pound bags, how many days will 1 bag of rabbit food last? So let's think about this. Like, picture it. She's got this 5-pound bag of rabbit food, right? And then every day, the rabbit eats 1/12. So day 1, we're taking out a 12th. Day 2, taking away another 12th. Taking away another 12th. This looks like repeated subtraction to me, right? Not just a one-time subtraction. I want to know how many times can I take 1/12 away from this 5? When you have repeated subtraction, remember that's the same as division. I want to know how many 1/12ths there are in the 5, right? So with division, order matters. You want to list what you start with first. And we don't start with a 1/12 of a pound, we start with this 5-pound bag. So you should be taking 5 divided by 1/12. And in order to solve that, I would multiply 5 by the inverse of this, which would be 12, because 1/12 would be the same, well, not the same, the reciprocal of 1/12 would be 12 over 1, and 12 is the same as 12 over 1. So 12 times 5, that would be 60. If you didn't know what 5 times 12 was, you could say, well, 5 times 10, that's 50. And 5 times 2, that's 10. And 50 plus 10, that's 60. So you could break this 12 up into 10 and 2. It's called using the distributive property. And anyway, 60 what? 60 days. That's how long that bag would last. That's something that's kind of important to know when you have a pot, because you don't want to run out of food. Okay, number 3. Mr. Dayton uses 8 cups of flour to make 3 identical loaves of bread. How much flour is in each loaf? Okay, so he has 8 cups of flour and he wants to make 3 identical loaves of bread. So that means I would need to divide this 8 cups evenly between the 3 loaves, right? This would be division. 8 divided by 3. Because I'm starting with the 8 cups of flour and dividing it up between the 3 loaves of bread. And with 8 divided by 3, I could look at this as 8 times 1/3, right? Or I could just say, well, 8 divided by 3 as a fraction, that's just 8 over 3, 8 divided by 3. Well, let's change that to a mixed number because we're supposed to. 3 times 2 gets me closest to 8, and 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus the 2 gives me the 8. So 2 2/3 cups of flour for each one. And would that make sense? If I have 8 cups total, I'm making 3 cups of bread. If I had 2 2/3, 3 times 2, 4, 6, and then 2/3, another 2/3, another 2/3. Yeah, that's probably about 8. All right, number 4. Jonathan can throw a baseball 10 1/3 yards. His brother Joey can throw a baseball 13 1/12 yards. How much farther can Joey throw the ball? So let's see here. Jonathan, 10 1/3, Joey, 13 1/12. And I want to know how much farther. So when I want to know how much farther, I'm asking you for the difference between the two of these, right? I want to know how much is it from 10 1/3 to 13 1/12. If you want to know the difference between the two, that's subtraction. And when I'm going to subtract and find that difference, I'm going to start with the 13 1/12. I'm going to start with my larger value. And I want to take away 10 1/3. That will let me know how much more this is than that. So this is subtraction. Again, it's subtraction because I want to know how much farther. I want to know the difference between the two. And difference is another word for subtraction. Now maybe you're noticing, hey, they don't have a common denominator and we're trying to subtract. Let's get one. Yeah, we can multiply 3 by 4 to get 12, right? So I'm going to multiply that 1/3 by 4/4. So this I would change to 13 1/12 minus 10, and 1 times 4 is 4, 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, can we solve this the way it is? No, unfortunately, we can't. So let's go ahead and borrow from this 13. We're going to make it 12. And I'm going to add 12 twelfths to the 1/12, which would be 13 twelfths. Now we are in business, right? 13 twelfths minus 4 twelfths. Well, 13 minus 4 is 9, and my denominator stays. And 12 minus 10 is 2. So we start off with 2 9 twelfths. That can be simplified. 3 goes into both of those. So final answer, I'm going to write it up here, would be 2 and 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So 2 3/4 yards. That's how much farther he can throw it. And that would make sense because 10 1/3 plus 2 3/4, like 10 plus 2 is 12, right? And then if you have a little bit extra from each of those, then that could give you your 13 1/12. So that answer makes sense. Always ask yourself if your answer makes sense. All right, number 5. Kim bought 3/8 of a pound of sunflower seeds and 3/16 of a pound of thistle seed for her bird feeder. I've never heard of thistle feed. You learn something new every day. How much seed did she buy in all? So she bought 3/8 of a pound of one kind and 3/16 of a pound of another kind. I'm not asking you to take 3/16 of a pound. It's not a comparison like that. It's saying she bought this and that, how much in all. So what operation? I'm thinking it's addition, right? So we would need to add 3/8 plus 3/16. Now, when you add fractions, you don't need a common numerator, you need a common denominator, right? So rather than doing this times 16 over 16 and this times 8 over 8, what can I multiply 8 by to get 16? If you said 2, you are correct. So I'm gonna multiply that by 2 over 2, and now I have 6/16 plus 3/16, which gives me 9/16. And there's not a number that goes into 9 and 16 other than 1. So 9/16 pound of a pound. Next one, number 6. Cassandra's fishbowl holds 9/10 of a gallon of water. It's now 2/3 full. How much water is in the bowl? Okay, so it holds 9/10 of a gallon of water, right? And right now it's only 2/3 of the way full. How much water is in the bowl? Now my question to you is the amount of water that's in the bowl gonna be more than 9/10 or less than 9/10? Well, if it holds 9/10 and it's not even all the way full, my answer should be less than 9/10. So do you remember what I can do with operation-wise, what I would want to do to get an answer that is less than what I start with when I have a fraction that's less than 1? Multiplication is the key. And another key is it says that it's 2/3 full. It means it's 2/3 of the way, 2/3 of that. So this would be multiplication. You should take 9/10 times 2/3 or 2/3 times 9/10. Either way. Okay, you can cross simplify all over the place with this one. If you didn't and you got 18/30ths, it's okay because you could simplify that at the end by dividing them both by 6. Or you can say, hey, 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 10 5 times. 3 goes into 3 once and 3 goes into 9 3 times. And 3 times 1 is 3. And 5 times 1 is 5. So it's 3/5 of a gallon full right now. That's how much water is in the bowl. And 3/5 is less than 9/10 because if I went ahead and made this into tenths, it would be 6/10. And 6/10 is less than 9/10. So that does make sense. Okay, 2 left. Predict and solve. Marcus studies for 9 hours each week. His friend Lucas spends 5/6 as much time studying. So 5/6, just looking at that, that means less than 1, right? 5/6 is less than 1. So Lewis spends 5/6 as much as 9 studying. Who studies more? So if Marcus studies for 9 hours and his friend spends less than 1 time of that studying, that would mean that Lewis would have less than 9. Okay, so Marcus studies for more because Lewis only spends 5/6 as much, less than 1 time. So we're gonna say Marcus. And now it wants to know how much time does Lewis spend? Well, Lewis spends 5/6 as much time as 9. And it's gonna be less, right? We already said that Lewis spends less time studying. So what do I do with 9 and 5/6 to get an amount that is less than 9? We need to multiply by that 5/6. So we would take 9 times 5/6 to figure out how much. I'm gonna put that 1 underneath there and I can cross simplify with the 6 and the 9. 3 goes into 9 3 times and 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 times 5 is 15 and 1 times 2 is 2. Keep it going. All right, 2 times 7 gets me closest to 15. 2 times 7 is 14. Plus 1 more makes 15. And my denominator stays. So Lewis spends 7.5 hours studying, which is less than 9. So it makes sense because we already knew Marcus was gonna study more. All right, last one. Stacy's long jump was 10 feet. That is 5/6 of a foot longer than Ron's long jump. Did Ron jump more or less than 10 feet? Okay. So Stacy's long jump was 10 feet. That's 5/6 of a foot longer than Ron's. So it's telling you right there that Stacy's is longer, right? So it says, did Ron jump more or less than 10 feet? Well, if Stacy's jump was 10 feet and Stacy's was longer, that would mean that Ron's was less than hers. So we would say that Ron jumped less. And now it wants to know how long was Ron's jump? It doesn't say that it was 5/6 foot, 5/6 like of the 10. It just says 5/6 of a foot longer, Stacy's was. So that would mean, hang on, I know we're in the last one, but my dog wants to go out. Of course, thank you, Millie. It wouldn't be the same if you didn't do that to us. Let's see if we can finish this last problem before she wants to come back in. Shall we? Okay, so picture this. Stacy's long jump is 10 feet, right? So here's Stacy, there's 10 feet. This is 5/6 of a foot longer than Ron's long jump. That means that Ron's long jump is 5/6 less than that 10. I'd have to go back 5/6 to figure out what Ron's long jump was. So what operation is happening if I'm starting with 10 and I want to go back 5/6? If you said subtraction, you're correct. We start with Stacy's and take 5/6 away. Okay, now I really want you to think about this, okay? Because we could line this all up and set it up vertically, but like, think about this. I can count up quite easily for this problem. Like 5/6 plus what would give me 1 whole? 1/6, right? So if 5/6 plus 1/6 gives me 1, now I'm at 1, right? And 1 plus what would give me 10? 1 plus 9. So 9 and 1/6 would be our answer. Isn't 9 and 1/6 plus 5/6 10? Yes, so 1 and 9/6 feet. If you wanted to set this up and do 10 minus 5/6, you can. We could borrow from our 10 and make it 9, and we have our 6/6 minus 5/6, which would give us our 1/6, and 9 minus empty box is 9. But all those strategies that we use in our number talks to have just good number sense around it, you are free to use those strategies when we're solving our problems. And I can't believe it, my dog didn't ask to come back in yet. It's a miracle. All right, good luck on the rest of your problems for today. I know it's tough picking which operation, but if you ask yourself at the end, does my answer make sense? You can always catch it. Have a great day, guys.